All right. What is up? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Headed Home podcast. We have a great episode for you today. We're your hosts, Andrew and Jen. We are excited because we have a highly successful and experienced real estate professional. His name is Jose Bonilla. Jose is a team leader and CEO of Keller Realty Advantage, one of the top brokerages in the Denver metro area. He's got over a decade of experience in the industry. He's grown his own real estate group, the Elevate Ave Group, which closed over $50 million and 111 units in 2021 alone. He was able to double his business since joining KW back in 2019. Jose is not only an accomplished salesperson and leader, but he is also a national real estate coach, helping agents increase their production. With his experience and dedication to his craft, he leads 200 agents in one of the top KW offices. We're excited to have him. Jose, what is up, my friend?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
I think you're doing better than us, given that I just heard you got back from Hawaii, but not jealous or anything.
True. I needed it. I needed it after all that. So,
well, it's hard to get away in this industry, we're always go, go, go. So when you take any time off, it's always a bit of a struggle for me, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's nice to be back though.
Good.
Well, we're glad you're joining us today. And just to kind of take a step back, on a professional note, I know you've been in real estate for a while, but, tell us a little bit more about what market you're in and how many families you typically help per year.
Yeah. So honestly, we work the entire Denver metro area, but we'll go anywhere. So my team is pretty flexible as far as that goes. But I would say primarily we focus on the west side of town, west side of the metro area, more than anything. We've got a hub downtown. We've got a hub in Lakewood as well, and then we are really excited to be opening up a hub in Greeley, actually. So servicing some of the north side of the state. So. Yeah, as far as that goes, for the last few years, we've been averaging about 100 home sales, 100 families served for the last few years. And before that, before actually starting my team, I would float around anywhere from 40 to 50 units sold.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
you're working.
I want to ask you about that. So I know that you got into the business around the age of 21 or so. How? Yeah. I'm thinking of us when I knew him when he was 21, and
I think I was ranked in the top 1,000 in Madden.
That was literally his.
That was my thing. Just balling out on Madden 2004, 2005, something like that. But that's awesome. So you jumped in, right? Yeah, at a young age.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
So I was the guy on my laptop while my friends were playing Madden.
Okay. Okay. Dang it. I was wondering what those guys were doing.
You know what? It's kind of crazy. So I don't feel like there's very many people that actually get into this industry intentionally. I kind of feel like we kind of default into this at some point in our life. And I know that's not the case for everyone, but for me, it was one of those weird things where I actually wanted to be in the industry since I was a kid. So my dad did a lot of, and really our family did a lot of fix and flips, and they would hold some properties, multi-unit, that kind of stuff. So I was around real estate since I was a kid. So there's actually, real estate agents now that I work with that I actually used to drive around in their car with. They used to show my dad houses, right? And multifamily and all that stuff. So kind of crazy to kind of go back that far. But I remember specifically in 8th grade, just really having this thought of that'd be a cool career. That would be awesome to do. And it's funny because you see all the external stuff. You don't see all the, but I was also a math and science nerd. So I really loved that. And I went to school for engineering. I decided to
which kind of, I went to school for aerospace. So I'm just interested.
So mine was mechanical.
Awesome.
And honestly, I say that, and it's I went to college, and then I'm this isn't for me, and I'm I'm out. Yeah. So I'm more of an attendee than a graduate. And so what I did is I went to real estate school when I was 17. So this is my senior year of high school. My dad's like, look, I'm doing these flips, and why don't you just get your real estate license? You'll get some deals off of what I do, and that'd be cool, make some money that way, right? And start working after high school. And so 17 years old, I'm scared out of my mind of taking this test. And so I don't end up taking it. And I couldn't take it until I was 18 anyway. And so like too much time passed and I ended up going to school instead. Well, after I dropped out of school, went back to real estate school again. And then I got my license when I was 22. So it's kind of my journey getting into the business, I guess.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I know that when you were, I mean, you were a top producer when you were working all alone. And I was watching a video where you had done an interview and you were talking about like, you had reached this point where you were doing all of this business, but it was really difficult because you weren't able to be present in, you know, other parts of your life, or you felt like it was very like focused just on work. And you know, like we talk about this a lot just within our family and like what our values are and all of that. So I would just love to hear like when you were in that place, like how did you make a change, and how did you really start recognizing that you had to kind of like focus on yourself so that you were more successful in all pieces of your life?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got to really thank my mentor, my friend, my coach, Danny Morell, for kind of basically guiding me through this. Because at that point in my life, like you mentioned, so I was working 7 days a week, you know, long hour days. I mean, it was just to the point where sometimes I'd go 2 to 3 days without seeing my kids, right? And that's not a lifestyle that any of us want to live. And on top of that, when you're hardly at home, communication with, you know, spouse isn't the greatest. And so it was a lot of turmoil. And it's like, you can say like, oh, that's fantastic, I'm closing, you know, 45 homes this year, financially, right? Like you're good and business is good. But at that point, I couldn't take care of myself. My health was terrible. Again, not seeing my kids, no communication with my spouse, with my wife. And it was just, yeah, it was a tough time. It was to a point where I was thinking about getting out of the industry because as much as, you know, it helped me financially, it was not the lifestyle I wanted to live. So I ended up getting into coaching. So I am a huge believer in coaching now, and I wasn't back then. And so I got into coaching, and it's funny because when I first got into it, I remember some of my friends saying like, why are you going to pay this person all this money, right, to tell you how to sell homes? You know how to sell homes, right? And it's like, that's not the point. So it's about, you know, the guidance that you get from the outside looking in, because a lot of times we know what we're supposed to do, right? A lot of times we already kind of know that. It's just either it's accountability or it's that having clarity and so forth. And so just being able to have that guidance took me from, you know, understanding that I can design my own lifestyle that I want to live. And I started gaining leverage that way. And it's crazy because that's when my personal development journey kind of, you know, went into play. So I started reading more. I started listening to podcasts. I, you know, developed a morning routine out of it, and life just completely dramatically changed. And it was beautiful. Like, and it takes time, and it took time, right? But you know, even my health and everything, like, you know, you see me now, right now I'm at 150-ish pounds, and I was at 228 at my heaviest. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so it's, you know, even that part of it, just because of the activities that I started doing and putting into place, it's definitely been a big change.
You want to go?
Yeah, I was just, you know, one thing I've noticed, and I want to talk about your morning routine, but we, you know, have similar experiences in the sense that like we kind of started that about 10 years ago. And just like, I think one thing that I've realized is like when you really start to focus on like bettering yourself and like working harder on yourself than you do on your job, you start to see success in every area of your life, as opposed to if you're just focusing on work, right? And so I think when you like put yourself first so that you can actually take care of other people, that can be like really beneficial.
100%. Couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I've experienced.
So I know it was a lot when you get into that personal development journey and you start focusing on yourself and paying more attention. What was one thing that you think changed that you changed that gave you like the most benefit right off the bat? Was it the morning routine? Was it a book you read? Share that with us.
Yeah. So it was, I think I'll give you like a couple of the pillars that I think that changed. So the first thing was just being open enough to listen to other people that are doing better or living the type of lifestyle that maybe you want to live or succeeding at an aspect of life, right? And so that was the first step, because then I was able to listen to podcasts and be coachable per se. So I think that was the first thing, just being open-minded. That starts expanding what's possible. So that was number one. But as far as the actual doing part of things, it was I read The Miracle Morning, which I know was a big staple, obviously, in the personal development space, but it was one of the first books that I've ever read. To me, that was like, this was all foreign, right? I know now it's like, oh, of course, The Miracle Morning. But like back then it was like, I read it and I'm like, well, let's see if this works. And it was like that 5-minute thing. I don't know if you guys have read it, but
Yeah,
we're
read
both big fans. Yeah.
So in like 10 minutes, I was able to do a morning routine where I actually felt like I accomplished something. You know, whether it was doing 25 jumping jacks and 10 sit-ups or whatever, like, but it got my blood going. And I know that I read a page or two out of a book that day, and I journaled a quick synopsis of my previous day and meditated for a minute, right? Like, it was just like those little, like, checking off the box of like, I did this today, and I did more for me than I, before 8 a.m. that I had ever done in my entire, last few years. I think it was more of a mindset trigger than it was the actual like physical, progress at that point. And so I would say The Miracle Morning was a big staple for me. So many other books that I absolutely love, but that was like what got me going into that. And then the next one would be exercising. So I didn't realize like what that does to our physiology, to our brain, to neuroplasticity, to our circadian rhythm, the chemicals that we produce for melatonin, and just everything. Like if every human being knew what just moving in the morning did for you, and getting some sunlight for 10 minutes, first thing in the day, like that alone would change lives. So,
well, and I love that you mentioned that too, and that's what I like about The Miracle Morning too, is that it's just the small increments, right?
So small.
But it makes such a huge difference, especially if you're consistent with it. I love that you mentioned that. In terms of business, I'm big on systems, because it's always my goal to, like, I want to help as many families as I can in as short amount of time as possible, while still delivering like the highest level of customer service. And so that always kind of brings me back to systems and teams and processes. And I'm a big checklist person. So everything we do, we have a checklist for. Tell us about that for you. I mean, you must be into that to do the type of volume that you do, and still have a life outside of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because even since I was a kid, literally carried around a little piece of paper, and anything that I had to do the next day, I would write down, and then I would number it on what I'm going to do first throughout the day. And that was like my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's crazy and it's funny because now I'm teaching my son to like do that. And I don't know if that's the best thing for me to do, but yeah, so it's like, I did that. And then I did, basically what I ended up doing is this. I remember sitting down at my desk when I first got my real estate license, like twiddling my thumbs, like, okay, what's next? Like, what do I do? Right? When I would get a client, get him under contract, okay, what's the next step? And then when I would ask, it's like, oh, you do this. Like, well, where can I find that so I don't have to keep asking you? It's like, I was more of like checklist, right? Like tasks, like what do I need to do next? And so what I ended up doing is I just got a blank sheet of paper. I just started writing down every step of the process. And obviously it wasn't perfect at the beginning, but it was something for me to go off of. And I ended up putting that into my first CRM that I used. And that was my first action plan, right? And so from there, it was every time I get a lead, I click a couple buttons, and then these tasks come up, right? Once they go under contract, click a couple buttons. This is what's next. I just have to adjust deadlines. And so that's essentially what I did. And then after that, I basically started documenting like everything that I do in my business. And it's like a living document, right? Like things change, processes change. You work the systems until you break them, and then come up with better ones, right? So that's essentially kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Well, and any time an issue might come up, you're able to say, okay, we got to add this into our system somewhere so that the next time you see that potential issue come up, you're prepared for it. It might be, and that's the thing about our industry. I mean, it might be 2 or 3 years until you see that same situation again. But if you have everything documented and you're able to add that in, it's just a great way to just stay on top of your game.
100%. That literally just happened yesterday. 13 years in the industry, never seen what happened yesterday. So
Yeah.
that was a fun learning experience, and it's going into an action plan. So
Right.
it's going to be there.
And then if you'll see it again, which probably will be another 10 years, you'll be ready for it.
I don't.
Exactly.
So Jose, you sound, both of you sound like very creepily similar in your system. So I have a question for you, because
Yeah.
Andrew is such a system weirdo. Like, he shares notes with me on his phone of like a nighttime checklist. So like when we're going to bed at night, it will be like, did I like lock the door to the house? Did I make sure that like our animals have water? I'm like, are you
It's
kidding
mental
me right
bandwidth,
now?
Jose.
I get
like
it.
if you right, like the less that I have to think about, right? So that's why I like the checklist, because like if I have to, the more I have to think about in the morning, like, oh, where are my keys, or do I have this or that? I mean, I just want to eliminate that.
I'm the same exact way. Like literally, like
Oh my gosh,
I'm not the only one.
So my nighttime routine is obviously different, but it's like I have my checklist. This has to happen. Like literally,
Yeah.
even to like packing my clothes up for the gym to make sure that I don't show up and like, oh, I forgot like a dress shirt or a tie or whatever, right? And so like I have the checklist every single day on my phone. Yeah.
This is so
well,
funny.
but for people that are listening and trying to like
Mhm.
gain ways of, being more efficient in their day-to-day lives, I mean, that's a real easy one. Just pull up a little notepad and just morning checklist, night checklist, and then you can add or subtract to it when you want. And then eventually you do it enough that it might become a routine and you don't need to, look at it anymore. But no, I think that's a good productivity hack.
Well, my favorite part of that, just to kind of piggyback on that, is the fact that like if you do that, and look, if you don't want to do the personal side of things, that's fine. But like at least in your business, when you're doing that, is that when it comes to the point where you're able to maybe hire somebody, or you're able to start delegating, the system is set up.
Yes.
Now it's like, okay, now the same task that I used to do myself, now I just assign to this person. That is the most important aspect of setting up task lists or systems or action plans, smart lists, whatever you want to call them. That's the most important aspect to me.
Well, and that's true, because I think a lot of times, whatever field you're in, it always starts in sales, or in business. It always starts out as you being everything. You're the accountant, you're the salesperson, you're the processor, you're all of this. And then if you don't have everything written out, like you just said, and you try and bring on a team member, then all of a sudden you're at a disadvantage because you're doing all of this new training because you never documented anything. So yeah, I think that's a really important point to make.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So on that note, I want to just talk really quick about a calendar. I think we use our calendars like obsessively with different things. And I think a lot of that is like having systems, right? So like you have tasks built into your calendar and you know when you're going to do them. But like being a master of your calendar, talk to me about like how vital your calendar is, within your day, because I think a lot of times, like I'll see people that don't have, and I'm by no means perfect, but don't have integrity with their calendar. Right. And so how do you use your calendar in a way that you can like work more proactively and really make sure that you're taking care of the things that you need to take care of?
Yeah. So to start off, I think a lot of I think the hardest part is keeping appointments to yourself, right? More than anything. So when you talk about having integrity with your calendar, I think that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And it starts with the mindset of like, because I remember like I wasn't the best at it, and it's like, oh, I know I'm supposed to prospect at the time, but right. But if it was with a client, oh, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or if it was with somebody else to kind of hold me accountable, then I was there. And so my biggest struggle at the beginning was more so keeping the appointments or the promises that I had made to myself. And once I had the shift in my mind of like, why would I ever make everybody else more important than
Mm-hmm.
my own goals and what I need to achieve for me and my family? And so when that clicked, and also it kind of coincided with I remember hearing Greg Harrelson say this in a podcast or something, and he's like a real estate tie-in out of California, but he said a day not prospected is a day not worked. And to me, it was like, okay, so even if I have to adjust things or if I have to do something, whatever, that's not going to be missed. And so at the end of the day, whatever is on your calendar, like, you can adjust, you can, whatever, especially when you have somebody else holding you accountable, then you're going to show up. But the ones, I think the biggest, I think the hardest thing to do is keep the ones to yourself. And I think that mindset shift is the biggest thing.
Well, absolutely. And it's because too, like that stuff, those appointments with yourself, like they're not necessarily urgent, right? Like you're getting a call from a lead and that feels urgent, right? And maybe it is, but like, I think that, and we've talked a lot about that quadrant 2 kind of zone, where it's important, but it's not urgent. And, but like you said, maybe you have an accountability partner that it does become something that needs to get done. But yeah, I think that's a really important part of, just staying disciplined, but discipline equals freedom. If you have that discipline with your calendar, it's going to open up freedom and possibilities in other areas.
Exactly. And I think also one of the smartest things I did afterwards is like when I was managing my own, there was that little flexibility of my own, thought process. Now with my assistant handling everything, like she protects my time, she schedules my time, I just show up. And so that's made my life a lot easier.
That's great.
I bet.
Well, I know you mentioned that it sounds like you're a big reader, and especially in the personal development section. What, besides Miracle Morning, like what are some other, maybe a few great books that you really feel like have impacted either you in your personal life or your business?
Let's see. I should have prepared for this a little more, but I would say on the business side of things, one key book that really helped us out in life was The Profit First. So I don't know if you guys have read that, but that was an amazing change in how we structure our finances, and we're able to honestly be debt free within about a year and a half after having a ton of debt. And
Profit first.
yeah. So that one's a pillar for me. And then personally, there's a lot, but I would say The Power of Now was big for me. And I'm a huge Dr. Joe Dispenza fan. So Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Have you read that?
No,
I haven't either. See, we're taking notes here. We're gonna.
Have you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I haven't.
Okay.
Is he the one that does like all those like, I don't even want to say like meditations. Is he the one that does like those does like a whole, I don't know why I'm looking at you. I know you don't. Yeah. Does he is he the one that does that?
Yeah, so he's in I know this is recorded. So this is my best interpretation of it. Okay. So it's like Dr. Joe Dispenza is like, especially that book, I think Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is like the explanation of the law of attraction.
Okay.
Like, right. And like why it actually works. So like, I feel like The Secret, like if you guys ever seen The Secret,
we're familiar with that.
It's like law of attraction for dummies, right? Because it's just the kind of concepts, right?
Yep.
But I feel like Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself really like boils that down into a scientific sense. And that's what Joe Dispenza does. And so, at least in my perception and how I consume the material. And so, he does like week-long meditation retreats, and it's just crazy. Like you start looking at some of the research that like just by meditating and how that changes, like, I mean, literally like blood pressure, like just like they took different samples of like of different people who did his meditation and people who didn't do the meditation, and then how their immune system reacted to the introduction of different viruses and things like that. And it's like, it's insane, like the data behind this. And so those are some of the things that they do in some of these retreats. Yeah.
I listened to Gary V, and his girlfriend is like super into Joe Dispenza. And so I was listening to a podcast one time, and he was talking about like how you should be able to meditate, because I meditate every morning, but like you should be able to meditate like when you're walking or like when you're doing something and training your body. And so I actually did one of his that's recorded like when I was walking one time, and I would like to read that book. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing. I geek out on that stuff, and me too. I meditate every day, and it's crazy because as long as I've been meditating, it's still a different experience every time. And I
Yeah.
I had a training yesterday on it, and it was like, I feel like sometimes it's portrayed in a way of like, well, you're just supposed to be at the space, and then you arrive and you're just there and you're just in bliss. And like, that's not necessarily the right concept to like grasp from what this is. This is a practice for you to be able to settle, be able to envision, be able to receive, so much more to it. So, yeah.
Well, and it's hard too. We just have so much information at our fingertips. And I think that like when I get on a path where I'll go a few days without meditating because I'm good. I'm like, wake up and I'll skip it sometimes, like, oh, I need this 10 minutes now to, work or whatever. But I feel just a little more cluttered in my head. I feel like when I do that meditation, even if it's just like a 10-minute guided meditation, it gives you that mind space, that mental bandwidth where it almost just brings you, up above into that blue sky. So you can have, the thunderstorm and the clouds going on beneath you. And you're not running with those, those emotions that are coming through all day, but we just are so much information from our phones and from every email and all that stuff, I think
It's
it's
nice
really
to
important.
be still, right? And just
Yeah.
be here. So, yeah.
Yeah, because when are you ever still? So on the book note, I just got finished reading David Goggins' book, Never Finished. And he talks about, he was a Navy SEAL.
He just yells at you the whole time.
Yeah, he just yells. He just yells it and cusses at you in the book, which, I sort of enjoy.
Yeah.
But he talks about like making sure that you really understand who's like in your foxhole and like who's in your circle and who are, or like Jim Rohn says, like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, which I guess I'm an average of an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old right now. But so I think like, it's something that I'm always like really thoughtful about, but like for you, what have you done to really be thoughtful and intentional about choosing the right people to like be in your foxhole, or the right people to really like that are impacting you in a really big way? How have you experienced that?
Yeah, that's a cool question. I would say, so I'm really into like communities and teams, right? Like I don't really like doing stuff on my own or by myself. And so even when I first started, I was on a team, right? And then I went solo and I didn't like that. And so I developed a team, right? And so I started one. So in the sense of business, I would say I try to surround myself with people that I know I can vibe with, that are going to bring me up, not down. At the very least, being able to carry a conversation about being better and being growth minded and learning based. And so, and it's cool because on my team, I get to determine who's around me, right? That's literally left up to me. And then on the other side of things, I was offered this opportunity to run this market center, and I knew that the opportunity came with, I feel like last year I got like a degree in business just being in this position, because Keller Williams literally just takes me to all the regional events, to all of the, and this is all paid for, plus on top of it, like, it's like I'm getting paid for an education. And then the people that I'm around. So like literally 2 months ago, I'm around the owner of our company, Gary Keller. And that's the first time I've ever been around a billionaire. Like being able to be in those rooms with these leadership meetings and so forth, like, to me, that's a big deal. It's worth everything that goes into this, right? And so that's a part of it. And then on the personal side of things is understanding who was supposed to be in your life for a season, and who to be able to let in, and to guard your energy in certain instances. Nothing bad, right, or indifferent. It's just, it is what it is, right? And just being very intentional. And that's not the easy, like, it's easy to say, but it's not the easiest to do. And I remember like running across it, but like, okay, I get it. But, and it's, you have to just understand like what is more important. Like my peace is more important than anything else. And so, that's how I kind of looked at it.
And I think like keeping in the forefront of like when you're making decisions like that, because they are really hard and emotional, but like what you value. And I think that like at the cornerstone of like your life, like what are the things that you value the most, and like making sure that when you look at your life that the things around like show that, right? And that is hard, when you have people in your life, like you have to be really thoughtful and intentional about making sure that people can see those values in the friendships and the relationships that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I love a saying that Justin, he's my general manager, one of the, and my mentor. One of the things that he says, he goes, sometimes, you got to really take a look and look at yourself, because sometimes the audio don't match the visual, right, or the video, and so it's that, like, I can keep saying that, this is important to me, this is important to me, but if you're not doing that, then that's not true. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jose, what drives you?
Wow, simple and loaded at the same time. Let's see. I know this is like the most cliche thing on the planet probably nowadays, but it's freedom in every aspect. Time freedom, financial freedom, the freedom to be able to just be me. I say that very confidently now, when before it was just financial freedom before, right? Now it's like time is is our most valuable asset, and on top of that is just, how should I say this? I got to a point where, like, I was doing everything that comes in a day to day or whatever, without realizing what I'm sacrificing for it, right? And then once I realized, like, okay, as long as I stay on this path, I can actually not stay balanced, but I can counterbalance, right? Because there's a season for everything.
Yeah.
For example, Q4 was not the nicest to the real estate industry, and we all know that. And so, luckily it picked up and so forth. But right now, working more hours than I had been working before, but for 3 years, working 20 hours or less and seeing my kids every day and taking my son to baseball practice and doing all that, like, that's beautiful, right? Right now, it's back to the season of, like, I got to be in the office, I got to go on appointments and so forth, but I'm doing it for the reason of getting to a point where I'm free, right? Where I don't have to. And so one of my favorite things to tell my team is, like, you're going to see me working because I want to, not because I have to. So
I love that.
That's
awesome.
Just let that marinate. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's a great answer. I feel like that just like articulated the way that, because it's like freedom for me too, but like I think what you said was like just the freedom to be yourself. Yeah, there's a lot to that. That's awesome.
So you mentioned your team, and I want to talk about leadership, because a lot of my background has been like leading people and in the education setting. And I do a lot of like leadership trainings with different businesses and stuff. And so I'm interested in your experience around leadership, and what are the things that maybe like you've learned through leading people about yourself, and like anything you want to tell me about your leadership experience, because I do think that it's really important to talk about. You might be really successful at your job, and usually when that happens, you get thrown into a leadership position, and that really creates a whole new skill set around like things that you have to know to be really good. So tell me all things leadership, and anything you want to share about what's important.
Got it. Okay, so I would say that's kind of what happened, right? Like, I got really good at selling homes, and I'm like, okay, well, now I need my time back. And one of the first steps is to leverage myself, right? And so I remember thinking, who in the heck is going to listen to me, right? And so that was like my first step, is like, I got to get somebody who will partner with me and listen to what I got to say. And, I got to know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first leadership, whatever. And that went terrible. Like, I mean, it was good. It was a good partnership. And he's still on my team. He's my director of sales. Like, it lasted. But what I'm saying is that I hadn't gone through the education required for me to be able to lead.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is, he stuck with me, and we both had a really good heart in it, and we knew what we wanted to get out of it. And so I think that was super important. But what ended up happening is that really immersed myself in like podcasts, into coaching, into like every single minute of my free time, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm like forcing myself. Like, no, like all of a sudden, like I couldn't even imagine turning on music in the car. I was like, I had a university on wheels by just listening to different podcasts, right? Like, and audiobooks and so forth. And so, I guess I don't know, to answer your question, I like just immersed myself in leadership training all across the board, anything I possibly could. Um, and so I would say like some of my biggest takeaways is this: as a leader, I know that I'm responsible for, you could think of it as like a CEO or whatever. Like in the case of like, I just got to make sure that there's a vision, that I take care of the people as far as organizational chart and so forth, provide the accountability that's needed, and then sustain the culture.
I love that. And one thing that you said, I think is really important. And sometimes leaders that struggle like forget that like you're actually like taking care of humans, like human beings that have a whole life with things that are going on for them. And so, just remembering that like you have to really work on that culture and recognize that they're like a bunch of humans trying to, get through this world together, that's like a really important piece when you're a leader.
Honestly, I feel like that was a big contributing factor to the success that I've had in business, is because I could no longer, like, I don't get the option of like, oh, I'm just going to sleep in today.
Yeah.
People are depending on you. Like they're depending on you to, keep the business moving forward. And so like, once that happened, there was no like, it was that extra nudge that I needed to just be a better performer as well. And understanding that, what I do matters now for others, not just for me. So I think that's a big deal.
Jose, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your business right now, and how are you tackling it?
I should have prepared for that one. All right, so let's say right now, and I wouldn't call it, I guess, yeah. So it is a challenge in the sense of, I took on this new position, and as the CEO for this office, and I say new, but I've been in it for a little bit over a year now, but still learning every single day, like new things. And like I said, like this last year, I feel like I got a business degree, right? Like just with everything and all the education that this provides. I think my biggest challenge is coming from, I was used to, as a coach and as a team leader prior to taking on this role, working 20 hours a week. Even on tough weeks, I was maybe putting in 25, 30 hours, selling over 100 homes, making a really decent income and spending time with my family. And I took on this role for the opportunities that it provides, right? And so the challenge that I faced right away, first of all, I don't know all of what the position entails in the sense of like all the nuances that it requires. And so it's been a big learning journey. And the cool thing now is that was the challenge, right? Spending more time, for the opportunity. And now we're tackling it through, like, we've actually grown the organization, which is really cool, because now I get to provide more opportunity, like not just this office, but also my team, because it starts like showing you the holes of like where you were still where I was still involved when I didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Right? But it was part of what the business required from me at that time. And so it's cool because now, we hired a project manager. We've got a new productivity coach in our office, doing some interviews right now for an assistant team leader or vice president of the office. And so putting that all into play, like, again, it's me being able to leverage myself, get my time back, and still get the results that the company needs.
So new agents coming in, right? Like, what advice, this market is always changing, but like, what advice would you give a brand new agent just walking into real estate today, in your office? What's a piece of advice you would give?
Get 200 names in a database as soon as humanly possible, whatever that looks like. I'm privileged to be part of this organization that I absolutely love, and with all of the analytics that it provides, with over 200,000 agents worldwide, we know that if you have 201 agents or more in a database and you communicate to it systematically and you feed it every day, that you're going to generate 6 figures.
It's a numbers game.
That's great.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so what's the most important lesson that you've learned in your career thus far? And you have to pick one. I'm forcing you to pick one lesson.
So many lessons.
let's see. I would say lead from love.
I love that.
I would say make decisions based out of love.
Which I think goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like you're leading humans and you're, you know, in a service to others when you're leading. And if you look at it from that point of view, one, like it feels a lot better. And two, you do a better job when you think of it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I mean, wherever you're at, but, you know, even in our industry, and it's just a lot of scarcity mindset. It's a lot of fear or whatever it goes into. Like sometimes you don't want to lead from love. That's not the route that you.
It's not always easy to do that.
Yeah, most humans would take, and it's just like, you know, dropping that ego and still making a decision based out of that for the betterment of the group or the other person or whatever. Even when our ego doesn't like it, it's I think it's the most important lesson I've learned.
Have you, total side note, have you ever read Stephen Pressfield's books?
I have not.
Okay. He talks a lot about ego.
Ego versus self. Yeah, the War of Art is a really good one. You should check that one out.
Okay. No, so I'm going to make a little bit of a shameless plug because I'm a coach for my mentor, for Danny Morrell. And so he hosts a seminar called Awaken in Austin, Texas. And it is a 3-day seminar, and it talks a lot about that and you know, understanding different levels of consciousness. And so it's a beautiful event. So we're actually traveling to the end of March.
End of March. Okay. Yeah. You'll have to send us those details and we'll post them,
you know,
and post some of this content.
Yeah, for sure.
I know I was just writing, I was like journaling the other day, and I said something like, if your ego wins, you lose. If you're, you know, it's almost like when my grandfather was actually big into customer service, and he wrote a book. He was the president of King Soopers in the 90s. And he wrote a book called Win the Customer, Not the Argument. So I think, like you just mentioned, the ego, you know, and I think we're all competitive and sales professionals, and like, you know, we want to win, but we also have to understand that, you know, sometimes winning is having empathy and understanding where your client is coming from, or where a referral partner is coming from. And then, you know, being flexible to, you know, be what that person needs you to be.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. I want to ask a surprise question to close.
Okay.
And this is the most important question that I have in this entire interview. So
why are you looking at me like I'm being put on the spot?
We're interviewing
Jose right
here.
We've done enough.
No, this is super weird to me. And I was like, because I was like looking into Jose, and I wanted to make sure I like, you know, knew, because we were interviewing him. So I was watching a video, and it was like thrown in there at the end, and I almost was like, oh my God. And I didn't want to tell you because I wanted it to surprise you. But you used to be, maybe still are, a rapper.
Yes. I still do hip hop.
Okay. Yeah, this is amazing to me, because this guy over here, when
we got a collab. This is back in the MySpace days, Jose.
Hold on.
Okay? I'm 40. Okay. I'm
Jose, hold on. So yes, he used to rap a lot. And I remember in our 20s, like he was my boyfriend. I'd be like, yeah, my boyfriend's like rapping. And, you know, like girls are like, seriously. Yeah. But it was funny because during the COVID lockdowns, Andrew's like, I want to make make a rap song. So like he spent 2020, like making beats and like, putting together,
dusting off the mic,
created a rap song. And so now my kids know the rap song, and it's like a whole thing. But anyways, all that to say, I just think at some point that maybe it would be fun for you guys to do like a real estate.
I don't know
real estate, but
I don't know. Especially mortgages too. It's not just there's no bars in there. You know, I don't know. It'd be tough. That's cool though, man. Like, so is that just like a creative outlet that you have then?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
So I used to do it. I mean, I still have my friends and group that we, we'll do it. We haven't done shows in a while, but still do some videos here and there and still recording. So it's crazy. My real estate team actually helped pitched in with my wife to buy a new setup for me. And so I got a
Nice.
brand new studio in my house, in my basement, like ready for my first recording. So I'm going to be working on that. My son's really into it too. Like you said, with the kids, buying into it. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. But yeah,
maybe we could like start a little
Well,
group
dude,
with our kids.
hey, at some point, Jose, like get me on a track. Just leave 16 bars, leave one verse open. Once you get in there, not your first track that you do, but
You
we'll
know
get
what?
on
Let's do
one.
it. Let's plan a day where
Okay.
we go through some beats and
I'm down.
we'll pick something and we'll just record it.
Oh man.
Dude, we totally should. I love that.
And it's so funny because I used to coach high school dance teams for like over a decade, and so I would teach him how to use like the beat software back then, and so he learned how to
cut beats. Yeah,
I would cut beats for him, and he would like rap. It was just, we had a whole setup, so it was funny. But anyways,
that's awesome. So when you watched the video, did you see any of the music?
No, I just watched an interview, and I did attempt to look for your music. I would love for you to send it to me.
If you want to plug it right now, you can. If not, we could let people search for you. But like,
we could put it in the notes.
Okay.
If you guys are okay with it. But I'm gonna send you guys a link of my last music video.
Oh God, I love this. This is the best thing ever.
Make sure
I told you this
speakers.
is the part I was excited about.
All right, maybe I'll share my track with you too.
There you go.
It feels like it's a safe place,
Well, Jose, thank you so much for being on this interview. We really
appreciate it. Great. I mean, we could talk to you. We should do this again at some point here in 2023 just to catch up, because you dropped some really good knowledge. Also, to share with where people can find you. I know you're on Facebook, but social
so
media.
I mean, everything is Jose Bonilla. So Jose Jose, Bonilla is Bonilla. On Instagram, it's JBonillaRE for real estate. And outside of that, my team is Elevate Ave. So we got all the business pages out there as well. So
okay, go check them out, guys. Thanks again, Jose, and until next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.